Let's get into it. You ready?
Let's get going.
All right. My name is Sean Michael Walker. Today, our guest is Larry Paulaski.
Close enough.
How do you say it?
Paulaski.
Okay.
Yep.
Which is what? What is that?
descent.
Polish descent. Okay. And we are on season 2, episode 4, I think,
Okay.
of Insurance You Indemnify Me.
I have to admit, I binged watched the first few seasons.
Okay, good. Good. So welcome aboard, Larry. Larry, you come to us from Safeco / Liberty Mutual. I'm confused about the whole thing. So
Which
are you a
one?
Safeco guy or you're a Liberty Mutual guy?
Liberty, all over Liberty,
Okay.
really, up until a couple years ago when we joined and created IA Distribution.
Okay.
I actually started in our loss control, and at that time it was called loss prevention.
Okay.
Background is actually engineering.
Really?
Yeah.
That's what you got your degree in?
That's what I got my degree in.
Wow.
And
What engineering? Like chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, industrial engineering.
So a lot of human factors, but a concentration in safety. So
Yeah.
it did fit.
Okay.
It wasn't just kind of
Yeah.
out of the blue. It was took an opportunity to get a advanced degree coming out of college because I liked college that much. But I was waiting to get on to some of the federal law enforcement waiting lists.
Interesting.
So that was really what I aspired to going into college.
Interesting.
Went and got my master's, started with Liberty Mutual in loss prevention and fell in love.
Wow.
So, spent the first 5 years of my career in loss prevention.
So big commercial risks. You're out on the site going, hey, this weld looks horrible.
That's right.
Is that right?
right.
I mean,
Or,
I'm boiling it down to a 30-second
Maybe not
soundbite,
weld, but maybe that process looks terrible that
somebody's going to get hurt because of this. Where's the handrail or whatever?
That's
Something.
right. Yep. And
Okay.
a lot of that. And
Okay.
enjoyed it. Had a great
Yeah.
time. I did that as a rep for a couple of years and then was a manager for 3 years.
Mhm.
And kind of on a whim and in a late night conversation I had with at a team meeting, kind of just came up with the idea, what if I went into sales?
Yeah.
And so I moved into at the time, our direct sales team.
Okay. On the Liberty Mutual
On the
side.
Liberty Mutual business market
Oh, okay.
world. So
Got it.
direct business to business sales.
Got it.
Liberty exited that in 2009.
Okay.
But I was a part of that team up until that point when we exited it.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
so did that for a few years, managed in there, and then we exited, as I mentioned, direct distribution. And that's where I really got my first encounter and first experiences dealing with independent agents.
Mm-hmm.
I took a job in Florida, running the state of Florida distribution for Liberty Mutual and Wausau at the time. We had just come together as an organization and ran that for a couple of years, really worked to expand our footprint down there. Our direct world had a pretty big footprint. The Wausau world and obviously we didn't have the independent agent world at that time. So we built it.
Yeah.
And so did that for a couple of years and moved into a large account role in Chicago. Did that for a few years. And
you moved up to Chicago?
Yep.
Wow. How was the Florida days? Were those good days, or
Great
were you
days.
like, oh, this was
No,
hard?
Loved it.
You built the distribution channel down there?
Well, I
Your
wouldn't say
team and
built
I.
it. It was in place, but I think can't remember the exact number, but we might have had 16 appointments.
Yeah.
And I think I left a couple years later with 170.
Yeah,
appointments.
sure.
So we just
There was a lot of building going on.
Yeah, but it was great. Loved it.
Yeah,
Got to see a lot of different agents and learn a lot about the agents, and
Yeah.
still see a lot of them today.
Yeah.
Even when we go to these national events, some of the agents I got to meet and bring on board.
You know what blows my mind? Did you ever go to the FAIA convention while you were down in Florida?
Down in Naples?
That thing is huge. Like, what is it? It's a big eye convention, I think.
It's a Florida
I've
big
been
eye.
to I've been to 20 of them in 20 different states, and that Florida one is
pretty
huge.
awesome.
It's amazing.
What's amazing about it is first the location, right?
Yeah.
But because it's in August, usually July and August, you can get a pretty nice hotel for a pretty good rate.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. So it's held at a pretty nice place, but it's not real expensive. And it's really well run, and enjoyed it. And you got to meet a lot of people there.
Crazy.
So that, but it introduced me to the warm weather.
Yeah.
And
then you went to Chicago.
I went to
which
Chicago
was
for
different.
5 years. And it was a very short conversation when I talked to my bride about moving to Arizona.
Yeah.
She loved the warm weather, and we took an opportunity to get out there, and that's where I reside today.
Yeah. Cool. So when did your most recent position, So you were in Chicago as a Liberty Mutual guy, and then your most recent position, we should tell the audience what you're currently doing. So you're AVP, RVP of the Mountain West region?
Well, I'm the field executive. For the Mountain region. So I'm responsible for IA, independent agent distribution, for both the Safeco brand and the Liberty Mutual business lines brand, which is $250,000 in premium and under. Yeah. Above that, we move into our global
large
risk
commercial
solutions and completely different structure over there. But $250,000 and under is.
And your state footprint is what?
Mountain region, 6 states.
So 6 states: Colorado, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, maybe Wyoming, and is that it?
That's it.
Okay,
That's
cool.
That's the 6 of them. It's at one point I think Condé Nast had the top 10 ski resorts in the country. 9 of them reside
We're in your geographic footprint.
Unfortunately, I don't think I get out even a day a year.
Right.
But I always can dream.
Yeah, that's funny. And that's a significant footprint for Safeco and Liberty Mutual. I mean, Safeco, the brand Safeco and Liberty Mutual in that 6-state footprint is a juggernaut. So,
I agree. I didn't have an appreciation for it. I did I come from the East Coast. I grew up in that part of the country. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned before, stops in different parts in the Midwest, down in Florida, Chicago. And then coming out here, even in what was the business market world, which was the old Colorado casualty footprint. Yeah. I knew of Safeco until I really started working with the brand. I didn't quite have an appreciation for what that brand means out here. Yeah. And it really is. It's very valued. It's a deep brand. It's got the amount of people you talk to whose first appointment was with Safeco. Yeah, right. Really, it's neat to be part of, and certainly great. Honored to represent the
So brand you've been a part of, I mean, your direct responsibilities as it relates to the Safeco brand is relatively new. It's like 3-4 years new, right? 3 years? 4 years?
It was late 2018. I think October 2018 is when we brought the 2 brands together. Yeah. And that's when I took over the Mountain region and became responsible for Safeco. Had a lot to learn. My whole background had been commercial. Yeah. And so tremendous amount to learn there. An interesting culture, slight difference.
Yeah, that's my next question. So tell me about that. Yeah. So what does the culture look like on the Liberty Mutual side? What was the culture on the Safeco side? How have those 2 cultures collided and meshed in a beautiful way?
Yeah, way I think I characterized it as we started to come together was there was an art and a science, and Safeco was very much the science. Mm-hmm. Business market was very much the art. Safeco was very prescriptive, had ways things were to be done, and they were done well and executed on. Mm-hmm. Business market had a lot more subjectivity in things. Sure. It's not as black and white. Clearly. Every individual risk is treated a little bit differently. Yeah. And over time, the 2 have kind of blended and leaned on each other. So in the business lines world, particularly on the smaller end of the spectrum, we're becoming, I don't want to say more prescriptive, but we are becoming a little more predictable in terms of how we go to market with things. And I think with Safeco, as we get into some of the book transfers and how we approach the deal, there's a little bit more art that's being brought in. So it's really been a nice lending of the cultures to each other that's allowed us to blend, but also succeed.
So I don't even know if you can answer this question, but every time there's a purchase or an acquisition or let's put these together, I shouldn't say every time, but was there? I don't know how to even ask this question. What I'm trying to ask, I'll just say what's in my head, and then it won't come out correctly, and then we can say it. Then we can clean it up and make it more correct. Through it. Yeah, we might even edit out the stupid question and then get to the real question. But so what I'm saying is, in an acquisition, there's always the one who's like, "Hey, we bought you. You're going to adopt our processes. You're going to become us. Everything we do is better than what you do. So that's what's going to happen, right?" Did that occur at Safeco with the merger, or was it kind of like we respect what we bought and we think that you guys are going to bring a lot of amazing, meaningful stuff to the table, and And so let's get together and figure out what good you do over there and what good we do over here and how we marry up.
That's well asked.
Okay.
Nothing to slow.
I don't know. I don't know.
So I think anytime there's change and there's always some resistance to change. And I think you could hear that both ways.
Yeah.
One of the fortunate things that we had was the integration of what we call the regional companies group. So in this part of the country, Colorado Casualty.
Right. Yep. And Wausau and the Golden Bear, whatever
Golden
it was.
Eagle,
Golden Eagle,
and,
a bunch of weird stuff. Yeah.
But First American. Not First American, excuse me, America First.
Yeah.
And then Peerless and a bunch of Ohio Casualty. And so that was undertaken back in 2012 in the business market.
Right.
And so there was already a blending where you had the Wausau, you had the regional company group coming together with a legacy Liberty platform. And meanwhile, Safeco kind of ran as Safeco did. Mm-hmm. And so they were independent. They were focused on the personal lines world. Mm-hmm. And business lines merged, or business markets merged together. Mm-hmm. And so there was already experience and a lot of leaders within the organization who had been through that before. Yeah,
it's a good point.
They were very conscious as we were coming together that just because it's the way it's always been done doesn't mean it's the way it needs to be done. Yeah. And so we really attacked it, and really we tried to be as conscious as we could of what the way things were. And one of the things, because if you look at the leadership, much of the leadership on the IA distribution side came from Safeco. Mm-hmm. And I was from the legacy business lines world. Right. And so in our footprint, I think there was some comfort that, hey, here's a business lines person. Yes, there's a lot of Safeco leadership, but there's also a lot of good with that leadership. And I think people really gravitated and latched onto it. And maybe if you ask some of the folks who were front lines as it happened, they'd have a different answer for you. But we spent a lot of time even surveying our employees to ask, what do you feel? How do you feel about it? And by and large, we feel like we did a pretty good job bringing the two organizations together. Yeah. So there wasn't a lot of angst or headaches, and really had an appreciation for the way things always had been done and why.
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. From the outside looking in, independent insurance, like the independent distribution channel, I think from the outside looking in, they look at mergers and acquisitions and they go, I wonder how internally that's unfolding, right? If it's unfolding beautifully or if it's unfolding not so beautifully. So, but I'll just openly say, from the outside looking in, it always looked like Liberty Mutual and Safeco and all those other ones that you just mentioned, Colorado Casualty on the other ones. It always looked like you guys were doing it correctly and beautifully and with harmony and all that kind of stuff. So
and like everything, right? There's days that I'm sure that why do we do it this way, or does it have to be that way? And heck, even a couple years into it, there's still some things that we're debating. Is this the right way, or just because we've always done it this way, is it the right way? And I applaud the leadership because they asked the question. It's not because this is the way it's been done. We have I have 7 counterparts around the country. And a lot of the time we spend together on calls or Zoom meetings is really working through the why something is done the way it is, and then challenging ourselves is the right way. And I think that lends itself to more harmonious merger as you bring these together.
So I guess now would be a good time to do like a little commercial for Gary Fisher. So I think Gary Fisher is responsible for all these book wins that you guys have picked up, and I can't even remember them. Like First American, is that one of them? That's the most recent one in California, I think.
In Arizona. Yeah,
they were
Nevada as well.
They were in like a 5-foot state footprint. But then he picked up I don't even want to say. Did he pick up an acuity book or something? An acuity personal lines book? There's like 4 or 5. Like every 6 months, they're like, here's another one that we're picking up. Yeah. And
so Gary is the person that's really helped build out that process. And Gary actually wears a few hats these days. And one of the hats he wears is he's the West Zone leader. Okay. So in addition to his day job of some of this other stuff, he actually manages folks like me.
Yeah, he manages 4 of you 7 or 3 of you 7 or something.
4 of the 8,
okay, cool.
So he has the Mountain, Pacific, Northwest, and Midwest regions. But what's been interesting about Gary spent time prior to joining Liberty and Ohio Casualties, where he came in, is he spent time in that private equity world. And so he has an appreciation for the hunt of the deal and the art of the deal. And I think some of that carries into how some of these large books have been approached. And the other piece that really has led to a lot of success is regionally, we spent a lot of time on book transfers. Our territory managers, you think about, there's two components of the deal. You've got to have a willing partner and you've got to have the book. But then you got to execute this thing.
You got to have a process that works. And Safeco has I think a killer process.
And that's what's made them so successful. Is you can go in and say, not only do we have the capabilities to do it, here's the execution, here's the historic numbers, here's how our field staff's enabling this to happen. And it's pretty wild when these come through. A lot of it is...
I don't know if they get enough fanfare. Like maybe they do internally but externally it's like here at the home office, it's like, wow, Gary Fisher did it again, and we're all like, holy cow, I can't believe it. But
and I think Gary will be the first to tell you there's a whole lot of other people.
Oh, I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. But there's been like 3 or 4 or 5 in the last 2 or 3 years, and every single time it happens, I'm like, good heavens, where are they finding these, and how are they making it happen?
Much like,
and why is Safeco the one getting it? Is nobody else trying to get that at bat? That's the crazy part to me, is that Safeco just keeps landing these over and over and over, and I'm going, this is amazing.
What's the good? What I've enjoyed about being involved in some of these it's win-win. Every one of these, it's not as if it's a hostile takeover.
Of course.
It's that carrier has decided for strategic reasons
to bail,
that they want to go in a different direction. And so how do you do this? How do you still support your agency plan? How do you support the customers you've brought on over the years in a way that it doesn't disrupt them? And I think that's what's really made it so interesting to be part of them as these develop, is the agents are appreciative of having it out, and the customers are appreciative of how these goes. And you've partaken in some of them. And I think that's really what the power of it is, and word gets around. That this worked really well. I had a great experience. I can't tell you if the leaders of these companies are calling each other, but
sure.
But at some point, I would imagine
you
some
would think they would go, hey, it seems like Safeco is successfully doing these. It seems like a good place to go.
That's right. And so it's, again, exciting, and it is a lot of fanfare internally, but you're right.
Is there a lot?
It's all NDA'd, so it's funny. You'll get a meeting pop up. And it will have some crazy code name, and you have no idea what it is. We have an idea what it is, but you have no idea who it is. And so when it's the appropriate time, and we're in the appropriate legal window, they'll disclose to us, hey, this is what's happening, and here's the points, and here's when it's going to be announced.
It's amazing.
It's really neat.
It's really amazing. Cool. Let's jump into. Is there anything else you want to say about the differences between the two organizations culturally and how they mesh together over time, or anything? I just want to make sure we hit that completely before we move. But is there anything else worth saying?
I don't think what we said. I mean, really, just the fact that a piece of each of the cultures has kind of found its way in. Is what I'd leave that topic with. Is and it's like as the market evolves and COVID evolves and digitization evolves, more of it's going to evolve with us. Our culture is going to continually change, like all of our competitors are as our independent agents are doing. So it's been exciting, it's been fun, and look forward to continue to do it.
Cool. All right. I think you kind of said how you got into the industry. So maybe we don't have to ask you how you got into the industry, because I think we already got that. But why do you love the insurance industry, and why do you stay in the insurance industry?
It's the amount of there's two things I guess I would cite as to answering that. First is the amount of opportunity. And so I mentioned that I think I had aspirations growing up to get into federal law enforcement. And I even pursued very early in my Liberty career some of that.
Like SIU unit or something? Or what?
More just the federal law enforcement agencies.
Okay, I see.
And, because you put your name in back in college, and some of these have a couple-year waiting process, and so they contact you. And as every time something would happen, another opportunity inside of Liberty would open up. And so you're looking at the both, and it's kind of, why would I leave what's happening, what I have here? Yeah. And so that's really what started me down the path. It only took me a couple years to make the decision that this is the industry I want to be in. Yeah. One, because of the opportunity, but two, at the time, as I mentioned before, I was in loss control or risk control. And one of the things that fascinated me about it was seeing everything made. Like you walk around, I'd walk in, and it's not a great party trip, but I'd walk in and I say, "Boy, I've seen this made. Yeah, and I've been in a plant that makes this, and I've done that," and it just fascinated me just to see how this stuff worked. And then as I moved into the sales, some of that carried over. But then as I moved into the independent agency, it's the same thing. Every independent agent goes at it a little bit differently than the next one. Absolutely. And so that's kind of what's fascinating is you meet 10 agents, you find 20 ways to do it. Yeah. Right. And that's what and they're all making a killing too. Like it's working. Their little equation is working in every single one of those agencies. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's at this point, everybody says it, and not everybody expects to get in. Yeah. Or planned to get in, but when they did, nobody ever really wants to leave. And I think it's because of that. It's just the community sense inside the everybody supports one another. While we compete against each other, whether it's the carrier or the independent agent side, there's a respect and appreciation. I think that's across the industry for one another. And I think that's really what creates that sense of community. Yeah. And I think that's why I stay. Certainly that's why I stay, but I think a lot of other people stay for the same reason. Yeah, I love the complexity of the industry, right? And you said the opportunity to, I think what you're saying is, all that opportunity to learn, right? All that opportunity to go a million different directions and still be completely entertained with everything that's being learned and the complexity of the industry. I mean, I tell folks that I've been involved in a transaction as small as a motorcycle policy. Right. And been involved in transactions that involve companies with 50,000 employees. Right. And everywhere in between. Yeah. And if you think about just to your point, the complexity and the difference and the nuances, right? I don't think, certainly some are more pieces and moving parts to the larger ones, but again, just the whole art of the sale and the deal is fascinating and it keeps you energized coming in every day. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All right. Funny stories. Well, moved 7.5 times. Spent a year and a half going back and forth in between an organization. Actually, as we were coming together with the Safeco, I was handling the northern part of the country. Yeah. And so I got pretty familiar with the flight attendants of certain flights. And you get to know them. You get to know the hotel people you're checking in and seeing every week. And I went back recently. I was going through some stuff, and I pulled out an old pile of business cards. So I've kept every business card, and I've got over 20 different roles and business cards over the time. And so don't know if it's as funny as it is just kind of speaks to just the opportunity, as I mentioned before, that you get presented with, take advantage of it, and have a lot of fun. Yeah. And, I had a role, one of the roles I used to have when I traveled, like I was talking about, I used to say the best job in the country was my gym shoes. And the reason why is I got to travel the country, stay at nice places, didn't have to do a piece of work. Because they'd sit in my bag because I got in at 1 a.m. from a flight and had to get up at 5 o'clock. So that was probably the pretty coveted job. Yeah, those were crazy days. We were talking before we started recording. I was on the carrier side, traveling 3 days a week, every week, week in and week out, and that lasted for a long time. But you're absolutely right. You pack your gym shoes, you pack your gym clothes to go, and you're like, I could totally get there. And then you end up getting to the hotel at 1 a.m. You end up leaving at 6 a.m. to go somewhere, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is never going to get done. Yeah. So, but it's there's also kind of, you see the same people too. Yeah, a lot of the same people are doing the same thing. Yeah, so it helps you through it, whether it's that in your industry or other industries. But But Go ahead. I was going to ask, so if you've been working with the independent insurance agency channel for a limited amount of time, what's been like your impression of independent insurance agents? They're fantastic. As I said before, you have to say that, right? Well, but like most of your career was like doing
big commercial stuff, not with independent insurance agents. So how has it been interacting with, a $4 million insurance agency, a mom pop insurance agency where you're going, whoa, this is a different aspect to my career? And what is your reflection on the distribution channel?
So when I look back, I talked a little bit about my experiences in Florida. So that was really my first introductory into the IA channel and how it operates.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned before, what fascinates me about it is the story and how they got it.
Yeah.
Right. What possessed you to get there?
Yeah.
How did you build your agency?
Yeah.
What's your vision of where your agency wants to go?
Right.
And that's really what makes it so intriguing and so much enjoyment in dealing with it. You sit down, and I mentioned before, meet 10 people, you have 20 different conversations on where they want to go or how they got there.
Right.
And it really, it's different than other parts. I spent a lot of time in the big brokerage world when I was in Chicago, and a lot of positive things that happen in that channel as well, but a different approach.
Yeah.
And the kind of the difference between the broker and an agent contract.
Right.
And you really see that on the forefront where the independent agent is, we'll use a really tired and overused analogy of that three-legged stool. Yeah. Right. The independent agent is kind of representing their client's interest, the carrier's interest, and trying to find the right fit. Right. And just to see how each of them go about it and go about it differently. Yeah. That's what I've taken from the channel, and I think I have the greatest appreciation for it. There's many ways to get it done and getting to see it firsthand. Yeah,
I was somewhere talking to somebody who was asking in maybe a forum or a chat room or whatever, and they were like, "Hey, how should I do this?" And they were getting advice from 10 different agents, and it was all over the board. and some of them were like, "My way is the only right way," and da 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 da. And I'm like, "Hey, hold on, let me just give you some of my advice here." And my advice was basically like, there's a lot of insurance agents who have created something incredible, right? And they feel like they're an insurance god because they've created something incredible. And everybody who's given you advice here is correct. Everybody has said accurate things, right? But the reality is because the industry is so vast and so complex and so wide, you could become your own insurance god, creating your own insurance agency in your own way, and still create something absolutely incredible, right? So everything everybody's told you here is accurate, but you could disregard all of it, do it your absolute own way, and you'd still create an incredible insurance agency. It's
execution, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can go at it many different ways. Yeah. If you make a plan and execute it. Yeah. It's like everything else. We talk the Olympics, you talk every other thing in life. If you make a plan, stick to it, most of that comes to fruition. Yeah, it's so interesting to me. There's so much success to be had as an independent insurance agent. And I think a lot of times you could just go do it and just get it done and put in the hard work. And, X amount of years later, you got yourself a $10 million agency going, I did it this way and that's the right way to do it. But what I'm trying to say is that's not necessarily the only right way to do it, right? And I think there's an appreciation. So I have the perspective and fortunate perspective of seeing it done.
Yeah, thousands of ways, yeah.
And agents will ask you, hey, have you ever seen this done? Yeah. And you're able to comment on it and say, here's what's worked great there. Yeah. Here's what you want to be mindful of. Yeah. But just the open-mindedness to try things. Yeah. Listen, what's amazing about so many, really all the independent, they're entrepreneurs. Yeah. And they're not doing it to just, how many agents you talk to say, boy, what sounds like great? Not growing and staying status quo. Right. They're in that. They got into this business for a lot of different reasons, but they got in here to be successful. Right. And so that's a lot of what we try to talk to our agents about, and even provide a lot of tools to say, hey, here's what we think could help you grow as things evolve and buying habits change. Yeah. Here's some resources. Yeah. And it's amazing to see the uptake by agents on that.
Shameless plug for insurance of the, what is it? Agents of the future, right? Yeah. Agents of the future or agent?
Agent of the future.
Okay, cool. We're going to get on that in just a second here anyway. So, I want to get into topics being discussed in the halls of Liberty Mutual or Safeco, and we can just hit these kind of high level really quickly. But the first one is, generally speaking, the topic of InsurTech. Okay, and I just saw this today online, but through Q2 2021 so far, there's been over $4.8 billion in investments in the InsurTech world, and that's already outpaced what was done in 2020, I think. So, and it's actually 7.4 versus the 7.1 that was spent last year. So I apologize if I'm getting my statistics a little bit wrong, but tons of investment in InsurTech, right? Tons of investment in InsurTech. What's Liberty Safeco thinking about InsurTech right now?
You've got to be part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to adopt it. You have to embrace it. One of the interesting things that you've seen, and I know you're awfully close to the InsurTech space and spend a lot of time there, so you'll have an appreciation for it, but it's kind of been the evolution of it being almost a threat to now
a disruptor to helping you evolve, right?
Yes. And
disruption versus evolution, right?
Well put.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really where you're seeing the discussion inside the halls of Liberty is, here's this group of InsurTech, and here's what they're investing in. Yeah. How does that complement our strategy? Mm-hmm. What can we align with some of these partners in order to do what we want to do better without having to build it from the ground up?
Yeah. So let's so another thing. So as it relates to Agent of the Future, because we're talking about what's going on in the halls of your carrier, but what are the, as it relates to Agent of the Future, what is Agent of the Future helping the agent understand? Let's start there. So if I'm an agent, I go to agentofthefuture.com. What am I seeing? What's it helping me understand?
I think at a high level, it's the evolution of the buying habits of the industry.
Okay.
At least that's the way I view it. So, and you could ask if people get different answers.
Sure.
If you stop and look at where and how is the industry evolving, and how do you best stay ahead of your competition? And so whether it's how you're gaining your prospects or your opportunities, how are you networking? What does your website look like? What is the first impression of somebody when they look up your company or your agency? And how does that compare to one of your competitors down the street? And so there's just a lot of, and then, even things about how people are coming to their buying decisions, and how can you expand your footprint in a marketplace. Yeah. And so there's just a lot of ways to look at your business and find a way to expand and stay out on the front of the curve as the industry continues, and more importantly, the buying habits of the consumer continue to evolve. And I think a lot of times people think this is limited to the personal lines world. It's not.
Yeah, right.
This is absolutely as prevalent in the commercial lines world as it is in the personal lines world. It just looks and feels a little bit different.
Yeah. So let me ask you, what are the top 3 things most agencies don't know that they need to know that's coming in the future? There's something coming. You guys are saying it loud and clear on Agent of the Future. What are those top 3 things that is being said that either agents aren't spending the time trying to understand, or, we can tell them right now, right here, you need to know this is coming?
Well, it's interesting. Like one of the stats in there, and I don't have the exact numbers, but over 70% of people, if they don't like the checkout process,
the checked out process,
as you're transacting, how do you pay?
Yeah,
they'll shut it down. Yeah, if you think about what e-commerce, and how it's evolved and how it influences the buying habits,
it's really true.
And so,
how many times I buy something online, I'm like, I don't trust what this looks like. I'm out.
Right?
I'll go buy it somewhere else.
And it doesn't come with free shipping.
Yeah.
I'm not buying
exactly.
it.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that's a big piece is what is that user experience? How does it feel? That is very important. People are going online to do this. Yeah. If you look at, certainly the trend was already there. Yeah. And then if you look at what's happened since March of last year, that's evolved even more. People have an expectation. Things should be easy. Things should be simple to purchase. And if it's not, I'm going to go somewhere where it is.
So let me ask you, as long as we're on the subject of user experience, I am with you 100%. I'm an insurance agent. I'm trying to transact a policy for X amount of commission. And I'm going, if I upload this policy with this carrier, it doesn't matter what carrier, my user experience is going to take 50% longer with this carrier than it is with that carrier. Or after I upload this policy, the experience that I'm going to have with this carrier and the retouching that I'm going to have to do with this policy after I upload is going to make my user experience bad. Or when I have to call up customer service, I'm going to have to sit on hold for 20 minutes. I'm not getting paid to sit on hold for 20 minutes. That doesn't make me money. So my user experience is like going downhill more and more and more and more and more. How would you describe like Safeco's user experience, the agent's user experience with Safeco overall? By the way, before you answer the question, I would say Safeco is incredible. So I'm a huge fan of Safeco. My own wife is an independent insurance agent. She loves, I come home at the end of the day and she wants to talk about insurance. And she's like, oh, I just love interacting with Safeco. They give me good answers. I don't sit on hold. I get stuff done quickly versus my interactions with other carriers. And I'm going, oh man, you just told me you sat on hold for 45 minutes. You didn't make money for 45 minutes. That's horrible, right? So tell me about agents' user experience with Safeco.
I think one of the things I've been most impressed with in my experience with Safeco is the investment into technology.
Yeah.
One of the things that we have on an ongoing basis, monthly basis, is report outs.
Yeah.
Talking through all the technology investments.
Yeah.
And so you'll sit on these calls and they last better part of a day.
Yeah.
And you'll just listen to different parts of the organization come in and talk about an initiative in flight.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and I touch agents every day.
Yeah.
So I don't even know some of the stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
And they come in and they'll say, here's what we're doing. Here's where we're investing. We're undertaking a movement of the service center from here to here. And this is why, or where we house the servers. And this is why we think this is going to be a positive thing. We're going to move from a mainframe to a cloud base. And this is why there's going to be a benefit to the independent agent for that or the customer. And so I think that is what drives it is everybody's trying to find a way to do it better, but ultimately trying to ask the two key questions. Is it good for our agents?
Yeah.
Is it good for their customers?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if the answer to that yes is yes, how can we do it? How can we put it in flight?
Yeah.
How can we do it quickly without disruption? Yeah. And there's things. Nothing's ever perfect.
Sure.
And you'll get a call and
an agent flips out because something got disrupted.
Listen, our territory managers are very good at letting me know if the system goes down.
Yeah.
And we have Microsoft Teams, and in the corner I have a few different chats, and you can start seeing firing up. But we have a pretty responsive tech team as well who will say, okay, problems acknowledged. ETA's this. We're looking into let your agents know, let the customers know.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's just this idea, this mindset that it's got to be good for the agent, it's got to be good for the customer, and if it answers those checks those two boxes,
we're going for it. How
do we get it done?
Yeah. And
again, just fascinating to hear some of these disciplines. One of the things with Tyler, it amazes me. He has his hand, Tyler Asher, the president of Independent Agents. He touches all of this on a ongoing basis. Like these report outs are to him and the leadership team, and just to see all the different pieces of it. But I think that's kind of the ballast point. Yeah, where from that chair as president of Independent Agent Channel, and then his leadership team asking those questions. Yeah. Are we sure this is good for the agent? Are we sure this is going to make a difference? Are we sure this is going to help our independent agents sell more policies? The answer is no. Should we be investing here? Yeah. And so I think that's really what drives is really the crux behind that user experience.
Yeah, kind of faster, better, simpler. Is it actually going to accomplish those objectives? Let's do it. Yeah. Yeah. By the way, it's funny because here's some screensaver in the background, but on one of my screensavers is a picture of me on a stage with a big sword in hand, which you were a part of that meeting. But Tyler, it's funny because Tyler pops up on my screensaver like every fifth or sixth day, and I'm like, oh, hey, there's Tyler.
Tyler standing next to Gittimer and PGI agents wielding swords.
Yep. So fortunately, they were very dull swords. Nobody could have ever gotten hurt. But,
sounds like you know from experience.
Yes. I remember a couple of days before, I'm running my hand up and down the blade of the sword, going, "No, nobody could ever cut themselves on this. This should be all right, you know." Yeah. But Tyler pops up on my screen all the time. So good guy, great leader. I love his focus on technology. He seems to have this incredible focus on technology, which is funny because I'm not a technological guy at all. I'm an insurance nerd, you know. And when people start talking about tech, even as much as I like to interact with InsurTech and the InsurTech world, I'm still like, I don't get it. I just understand the insurance application of this tech, but it seems like Tyler is like a genius as it relates to that specific world. I think the independent carrier that is going to make life faster, easier, simpler, and there's a few, right? The carriers that do that are going to be the carriers that are going to win long term. I mean, it's just going to be, I either make X amount of percent here and I can do it in this amount of time, or I make X percent there and it takes, X plus 58 minutes, and I don't have the extra 58 minutes. The more time I spend on a policy, the more it makes me a $10 an hour agent versus a $100 an hour agent. And I don't have time to use the carriers that make me $10 an hour agent. Right. And so if Safeco plays the role of helping the agent and the agency owner be a $100 an hour agency owner versus a $10 hour agency owner, then Safeco wins all day long, any day.
I've heard the $10 and $100.
I'm just throwing that out there, just fooling around.
But to trademark that.
I think I already have, actually. So it's been repeated many, many times. But the carrier that helps the agent be a $100 an hour agent is going to be the carrier that wins, because I don't want to be a $10 an hour agent. So I won't use the carriers that make me a $10 an hour agent, right? Yeah. So,
and one of the interesting things that you see is, you get a lot of folks coming in asking questions about, why can't we just do this? And one of the appreciations you have is the scale.
Sure.
So every one of these, the cost associated with because of the scale of the organization, and having to really risk reward some of that investment. To try to stay out in front. But not spend so much that you're not competitive and not putting a competitive product out there. Right. So really trying to strike that balance into how do you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so next question, things being talked about in the halls of Liberty Mutual / Safeco, acquisitions. Do you guys have anything going on there from that perspective?
Yeah,
there's a big announcement, I think last week, right?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
I was on vacation with my family, and I got a couple of urgent texts in the morning saying, hey, going to need you to hop on a call. We've got an announcement that's coming out. And actually, the internal announcement came out, and we got to find out some of the details. And, it's still premature. There's it's a pretty unique acquisition and merger as we work through this, two mutual companies. It's going to take a little bit of time. I think estimates
I heard like 2 years. Up to 2 years.
I think for it to go through the regulatory process, we expect it to be into next year. One of the things that the organizations, I'm sure, both for us and State Auto is that.
Oh, is that it? That's who it is? Oh my gosh! I'm just kidding.
It is.
You heard it here today, people.
It was funny, actually.
As if you didn't hear it 2 weeks ago.
When you sent me the last podcast.
With Haley.
I got to learn a lot about it.
Yeah. Haley's great, by the way.
Yeah, she did a great job.
She's really, really great.
She did a great job. But again, as we go through the process to stay the course, don't swim out of your lane.
Sure.
The transaction's not closed. And keep your head down. But we're excited.
It seems like a great acquisition.
It
seems like you guys would marry up very, very well.
They have a very big commitment to digital, like we do.
They do. A big commitment to the IA channel, like you do.
Commitment to the IA channel. Very investing heavily in DE&I initiative, and so as we look at that, it's like, boy, it does feel right. And look forward to transaction closing and actually learning a lot more.
Cool. I won't ask much more because I assume you can't say much more.
I think I'm out. That's about all. Honest to God, that's about all I know. Yeah.
Well, from my perspective, I think from the industry's perspective, I think the whole industry is looking at it going, that seems like a match made in heaven. So it seems like the industry could see that. From my perspective, as it relates to acquisitions, I think we're going to see a whole heck of a lot more of it over the course of the next 5 years. I think I heard a statistic one time that said there's about 1,000 P&C companies in the United States, property and casualty companies in the United States. And it just seems to me like we're going to see more and more and more and more and more progression faster and faster as it relates to these. Because, you've got some competition that is supposedly a company that likes to acquire and do acquisitions. From my perspective, they haven't done a lot of it for a long time. I mean, it seems to me like it'll be a very active 5 years of acquisitions.
It's interesting when you read the publications about our most recent acquisition, how it spurred a lot of conversation.
I think so. Yeah.
About some of the other things that are happening. And pretty fascinating, and you get some different opinions. Yeah. But pretty fascinating to see a lot of what you're saying starting to come forward in some of these journal articles as people talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, cool. All right, this next question, I'm going to phrase it like this. So there's so much momentum moving towards the IA channel, right? You got Allstate buying National General, and State Farm bought a little non-standard company called Gainsco, I think, right? Yeah. And Farmers purchasing MetLife, and you got a lot of insurtechs moving aggressively towards the IA channel. You had some insurtechs saying, we can do it without a distribution channel, and now they're going, let's move aggressively towards the IA channel because that's a scrappy, resilient channel. You got a lot of people moving aggressively towards the independent insurance agency channel, and it's really freaking exciting to see that happen. What do you think that all means philosophically in your head? I mean, what do you think all that momentum towards IA means?
The IA channel has a pretty unique advantage over other distribution channels. And if you stop and think about the ability to provide ease of use, choice, advice, providing all of that, if you're a consumer, if you can get that ease of access down, and then you start layering in the ability to provide not just one, but multiple options, and then help advise the person to say, boy, this option feels like a really good one for you. Yeah. Can't help but say, boy, that seems like a compelling distribution channel, right? Yeah. And I think that's where it is. One of the things we've said, I had former manager Spencer Donkin used to say, we listen, we're not going to be out there to pick the winners. Yeah. We're going to invest like heck into the independent agent channel to make sure they are the winner. Yeah, right. Right. But the consumer is ultimately the one who's going to make that decision. Right. But let's make sure we're putting our resources behind the independent agents to make sure they are that winner. Yeah. And so that's where you see, and we talked a little bit before about shameless plug time, but Agent of the Future, we're bringing that forward. This isn't exclusive to Liberty Mutual and Safeco appointed agents. Yeah, you're saying it to the world. Yeah, this is to the world. Yeah. This is what the agent of the future will look like. This is an open resource that anybody can go to and learn and take. And again, that is because at Safeco and Business Lines, we're all in on this independent agent. Yeah, like we believe, and we're putting everything we can behind it to make sure. And again, what's great. It's fun to see others coming, following the same thing. It's kind of makes you think you're on the right track, right? You're invested in the right one. Yeah, absolutely. It's a very exciting time. It's so exciting to see how everybody's moving towards IA. And I think, I don't have the statistic on here either, but I think last year the direct channel shrank 2%. I think the IA channel grew 2%. I think I said direct, but I meant the captive channel shrank 2%. The IA channel grew 2%, and the direct channel stayed stagnant, right? So it's fun to see that direct channel shrink, the IA channel grow, and us hold off the direct, right? So again, it's just nice to see, the level of investment and energy and effort we're putting towards helping grow this. Succeed.
Yeah. And it's interesting the things that you said that are unique to the IA channel, because I know Tyler's written an article about it or something. I remember or reading it somewhere, but choice, the right price, I think, is one of them.
Sure.
One of them is consultation, right? The ability to consult on the right coverages, and I forgot what the third one was, but
ease of use.
Ease of use. There you go. So, or the fourth one, but I mean, the channel has everything that it needs to win and succeed. It's fun to see all the momentum coming at it, which is a lot of fun. All right. How does an agent pivot / learn to do commercial? So think about your Safeco distribution channel, right? There are a bunch of personal lines guys. They used to be Allstate, State Farm, Farmers guys. They're now independent insurance agents. They're winning. They're growing. Really awesome independent insurance agencies. They're $5-10 million insurance agencies in written premium. And what advice would you give them to pivot towards commercial, to effectively pivot towards commercial?
I guess I'd say it depends on where they're looking to go. And one of the things I've seen over my years in the channel has been some people looking to go upstream. And so you're going from personal lines, and now all of a sudden I don't want to say middle market, but call it upper, upper, what we call our business line segment. Yeah. That's a big jump. That's a pretty big jump.
That's a big jump.
A lot of nuance there, and it's hard.
Yeah.
And so I would say there's a couple things. You almost have to identify what is your source, what is your lead source, how are you gaining, or how are you attracting business, and I think that will help direct you as to how you want to go about it. First, I mean, there's a lot of coverages, there's a lot of pieces and components to the commercial side. Yeah. And if you start getting into too specific or too unique of a market, you start getting into some of the specialty coverages and the exposures that are associated with them. Now they're harder to get access to those markets. And so I think first thing you have to is identify is where I'm going after. And so if I'm going to go after contractors, okay, that's great. I have a lead source for contractors. Sure. Now you need to attract and gain relationships with underwriters who understand that. Make sure you have this surety piece. Make sure you can come at it from all angles to be that solution versus just trying to get a price and sell the cheaper price to win the business. And so really it's identifying where, and then from there becoming an expert in that particular area. It's pretty hard to come in and just be a generalist and have a tremendous amount of success unless you have a lot of resources behind you and a really, really big referral base. Yeah. My recommendation is pick a couple industries. Yeah. Focus in on them and become an expert. Yeah. Yeah. Go deep in a few verticals. And then through that, you'll learn. Yeah. You'll learn. You can pick up two more verticals, but you're not going generalist across every single vertical. And then here comes your referrals. Yeah. Right. So, boy, you did such a good job with this contractor. Yeah. Here's a friend or a peer of this contractor, and here's another peer of this contractor, and then you get this contracting book built up. Oh, by the way, we also have suppliers. Boy, a little bit different, but close enough. Now I can venture into suppliers. I would hesitate and I'd caution boiling the ocean from a base of prospects, because you'll also burn your underwriter. Yeah, an underwriter's going to want people who understand what they're doing in a segment. Right. And as you start sending things in and incomplete applications and not quite understanding the supplemental applications and so forth, you're not going to win a lot of points with an underwriter. Right. Good. Why do you think it's so hard for them to pivot? I mean, you see a really good, amazing. I mean, I'm sure you're thinking in your head, you visualized, that awesome personal lines agency in Arizona that has a $10 million Safeco book, and it's just an amazing personal lines agency.
And you're envisioning in their head, like, yeah, all they do is personal lines. They don't actually do commercial. Why don't they pivot into commercial?
I think while there's a lot of similarities in the insurance product, there's a lot of differences too. There's certain requirements of a commercial line, or the claims handling inside of commercial lines, or understanding how the claims process works in that world, in the commercial line versus the personal lines world. I think
financing, sure. That confuses agents.
And so I think that's where I see a lot of agents getting in, stubbing their toe.
Yeah, sure.
Because they just didn't quite have an appreciation for.
Yeah. I agree. There's some weird complexities.
It's still different.
Yeah.
And even at the CSR level, right? If you have a CSR, a great CSR who's spent their career as a personal line.
Yeah.
And boy, you start layering in commercial lines and the complexity, and rather than inputting it into a rate or getting 5 quotes back, you're inputting it into 12 carriers' individual site, and getting 3 quotes back. And so just understanding how the time demands are different and being efficient there. I just think I think there's certainly you can find people who can help advise you and walk you through. And actually, a lot of our territory managers spend a lot of time helping them. We've done a lot of cross appointments,
right.
And so talking to, this is how we see it. This is how it's slightly different on the business line side. Again, there's some similarities.
Sure.
But here's how it's a little bit different, and making sure they understand what they're getting into. And I think most of them, my experience is that most of them will acknowledge.
Yeah.
Everybody goes in both feet.
Yeah.
And quickly come up and realize,
whoa, that was different.
A little different than I expected, but the good ones and the ones who persevere.
Keep going for it. Yeah. Funny question. How many inches of hair did you cut off a month ago? You were getting pretty long and flowy.
It was good.
It was because of lacrosse?
Yeah. Well, that was my excuse.
Yeah. Okay.
It started at like a lot of other people, barbershops were closed.
Yeah. Yep.
And way back in college, I thought I had a cool haircut, or not haircut.
Yeah.
And so I said, boy, what better time to
Let
see
it
how
ride.
this grows out? And so then as it started to grow out and barbershops started to open, I got involved in coaching my kids lacrosse, and I felt like it gave me a little bit of credibility.
Right.
And so lacrosse is a long hair sport, much like hockey.
Yeah.
And so.
So how many inches?
Oh boy, it
4 inches.
Yeah, and there was 2 times it cut. One time, the first haircut I got, they took about 4 inches off, and the second time they took about another 4 inches off.
That's funny.
My daughter used to come in and want to braid it. At the end of a Zoom call, she's like, "Dad, can I braid your hair?" And I'm like, "Boy, it might be time to
cut it down.
Just
size it down." Yeah. Well, the last time I don't even remember the last time I saw you, but the last time I saw you, it was getting long and flowy, and
it was a Zoom call.
It was looking great, but
tucked it underneath the collar.
Yeah, right. All right.
But we all had our COVID stories. There were a lot of greats, and so I had one last time. One nostalgic moment of college hair growth, and now we're back to the reality.
I always told my wife, when I retire and I'm full head of white hair, I'm gonna grow it out like long and flowy, I'm going to do that.
You don't appreciate how many people have it. I didn't. And then once I grew it out, I'd walk down the street, and there was a lot of people who did that with that long flowing gray hair who just retired. And I'm like, boy, does mine look like that? I better get it cut.
If mine looks like that, it doesn't look good. I got to cut it.
There's a lot of folks in my house who didn't like it.
All right. How are the best agents leveraging data in their agency? If they are at all. We all talk about it like, oh, we're all leveraging our data. At Premier, we actually are. We got a couple data scientists, and we got a bunch of tech people, and we're, open APIs and stuff like that. But the vast majority of the distribution channel cannot be leveraging their data the way they should. But what are the best agencies doing to leverage their data? How are they using it?
So I think if you look, we talked earlier a little bit about insurtechs.
Yeah.
Boy, this is that complement piece, right? Where they can come in. These insurtechs have built these boxes in which this data can be better managed.
Yeah.
Because, candidly, I mean, you certainly have your your major management systems, but the extraction of the data in there is what's been lacking.
Sure, absolutely.
And so as you see some of these insurtechs start to come out, really just partnering, and this is where there is some value where the folks, again, the insurtech can, and who can bring them insurtech.
Mm-hmm.
And so for some agents where they look to networks, they can bring that value and help them manage that if they're not in a position to manage it themselves.
Right.
And so I think that's where they can consider looking at that is there a network? Is there a partner? Is there a consultant who can come in here and help me manage this data better? Then you probably should, because your competitors are, and that's how they're going to gain their advantage.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't agree more. What percent of the distribution channel do you think is using their data? I mean, you got all the moms and pops out there that probably aren't even trying to figure out what their data says. They're just trying to sell the more written premium or the next policy.
Yeah, boy,
wild guess. I mean, what would you guess?
Yeah,
I bet you 10% of the distribution channel is trying to figure out how to leverage their data.
I was going to go 15, but we're not far off.
Yeah.
I don't think out of necessity they haven't had to do it. I think as you get, when you talk into smaller agency operations, there's kind of an inference where some of this might be rural agencies as well. And as a function of that, I think the way they've done it has been effective. Yeah. It's how they built their agency. Yeah. But I think as we talked earlier about the evolution and the digitalization of the industry, you have to. Yeah. You have to evolve with it. Just think of COVID, and there's some instances I've seen where things shut down. Yeah. And an agency in a rural town relied on walk-up business. Well, if there's a government mandate says you can't be open, pretty hard to have walk-up business. Right. So you've now got to pivot to online business. Right. And if you're not equipped and positioned to do that, and leveraging your data, leveraging your leads, being more digital, relying on these different ways you can attract customers. Sure.
Or attract the right customers, right? To have the data tell you this is the right customer, this is the wrong customer, right? So lead determination versus lead generation. But
and I think you want to help your partners do it. Yeah. You want to help your partners find a way. Yeah. Even a single person shop, there's a way you can provide a resource to them to help them manage the data sources that they have.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and it's just the whole concept is interesting to me because now there's new ways of getting data, right? So I think insurance carriers historically always went to LexisNexis and said, "What do you compile?" and we'd like to purchase some of that from you, right? And now there's a million different vendors and data providers where you're going, hey, maybe we should start taking advantage of this data resource or that data resource. But I think
it's easy use, right? Yeah. And if the data's there.
Yeah. And cheap enough.
How do you not want to use it, right? Think of even VIN prefill.
Yeah, exactly.
Who wants to type in a VIN number when you can just extract it out of a system?
Exactly.
And that's where the advantage is.
And carriers using the data from not roadside assistance, but the plug-in dongle thing. Telematics, and it's so interesting where everything's headed. I just wonder if the 90% of the distribution channel just goes, how could I be expected to dig into my own data?
Well, I think it's...
Or I didn't get into this industry to dig into my data. I got into this industry to sell, and that's what I'm good at, and don't ask me to do anything else. But as a carrier, I think you'd be going, well, we need you could play a more effective frontline underwriter if you dug into your data, right? Our more profitable partners dig into their data,
The sales skill is awfully hard to teach.
Yeah, absolutely.
And either I don't want to say you're born with it or you're not, but boy, it's not one you just pick up.
Right.
And so I think if my message to the agents would be, boy, if you're good at sales, you got the capabilities and skills.
Yeah.
Try to figure out a way to do more.
Find a piece of technology that makes more sense of your data. Yeah. All right. Well, as long as we're on that topic, are insurance agents salespeople or are they field underwriters?
Can I use my three-legged stool?
Yeah, sure.
I think they're both, and the good ones are both.
Yeah.
I think your carrier relationship, your customer relationship are paramount to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're a good consultative salesperson,
mm-hmm.
that's going to take care of that customer.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, if you're not able to manage that carrier relationship with your territory manager, your underwriter, and all the folks you deal with on the carrier side, doesn't matter how good you are at consultative selling, you still need a product to sell.
Yeah.
And so I think you've got to, it's a bit of a cop-out answer. It's staying right down the middle, but I think you've got to invest in both sides. And I will tell you, no matter how big of a transaction or how small of a transaction
mm-hmm.
it is, the great ones are able to do both.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's a tricky question because I could follow up with what percent of the insurance agents think that they're sales people or field underwriters, right? And I'd probably think 90% of the distribution channel would say, I'm a salesperson. That's my job. It's the carrier's job to tell me if they want it or don't want it, and underwrite it or don't underwrite it. And I don't know if I agree with that. I'd be in the camp of the 10% going, no, we have some serious responsibility here to play our role in this. But I'd say 90% of the distribution channel saying, my job is to kill it and bring it back and say, here you go, Safeco, do you want this? And if you don't, who else wants it? And I would think the vast majority of the distribution channel would say, we're salespeople. You hire the underwriters, and we'll go from there.
Yeah,
and that's a dangerous thought, I think. But
no, and I think it's fair. I guess I'd counter with there's two sales to every transaction,
mm-hmm.
right? There's the point of sale,
mm-hmm.
but then there's the sale to the carrier who's backing the paper on the transaction. And if you short that sale, and your competitor does not, well, you think the prices are going to look the same?
Yeah, of course.
The one who's invested in both sides is the one who's going to win. And so I'd agree that so much of the distribution or the independent agent sales world will look and say, if I can't sell, I can't live. I can't survive. Yeah. But again, I just encourage that. Don't forget about that other sale.
Of course, yeah.
And because again, you
and taking care of that carrier relationship, and
whether it's personal or commercial, you look at 10 opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
They're all different.
Yeah.
None are the same.
Yeah.
And so how do you account for that variability?
Right.
And that's where that discussion in sales.
Yeah, it's almost back to that $100 an hour agent versus $10 an hour agent. And then you go, but I want to be $150 an hour agent. And I do that by taking care of my partner carrier books, right? Mm-hmm. So if I can take care of my partner carrier books and steer business different directions, then that plays out better, right?
Agreed.
Yeah. So there's 3 distribution models in the United States: direct, captive, and IA. And if they look at one of those distribution models as less cool than the others, but I wonder if independent insurance agents can do a better job consulting and offering options to where the general public goes, man, that's really the distribution channel we should be choosing because they offer me so many different options.
There's
or so much more consultation. Like, I would love it if the IA channel was guilty of over-educating every single client and guilty of offering a lot of options and having Americans in general go, wow, those IAs, they just are really good at educating us.
Well, I think this is where you layer in that ease of use piece, right? So you're striking a balance. Boy, you and I could sit down and we could talk 2 hours to a potential client about all the different options and the values and why you want this.
Or consider this, don't consider,
But if you can layer in simplistic ways to provide or deliver that message so it hits home quickly, people understand the risk versus doing it and not doing it. I think that's where, again, some of this digitization and the evolution of where the industry's going is providing more interactive and creative ways for people to understand exactly what they're buying. Another point on this is we have in my neighborhood, have one of these neighborhood forums. And there was an instance.
There was a bobcat in the backyard last night.
And in Phoenix, it's a picture of the bobcat with the snake slithering underneath it.
Sure.
But they have, hey, anybody know of an agent? Anybody? Because I've been with this person and they've brought me just one option. And they've been good, but I'd like to, price has gone up X%. I'd like to see other options. They only have a option. And just kind of people getting that sense for, wait a minute, there's a way you can have all the good of that relationship. But I can also bring you choice. I can bring you multiple options to help you make a better decision. And I think that's
more meaningful consultation, right?
And people react to that. People enjoy that. I think there's a positive message people walk away. If you walk into a grocery store and there's one product there, one, if you're going to the cooler and there is the one soda that you can buy, and boy, there's lots of it. Maybe I'm not in the mood for caffeine. Maybe I want something a little bit different. That's the mentality that people need to take towards the channel. And I think a lot of people do. I do really believe as we continue to be able to meet the buyers where they're at, that's, the captive channel's done a good job meeting those buyers where they're at. And so as we continue to invest to meet them there, as the captive channel has been doing, I do think you're going to see a greater and greater continued momentum inside the IA channel.
I wonder how the carriers could help us do that. Like help us raise that flag. Our distribution model, the distribution model that these carriers, I think I said captive carriers, I meant independent carriers though. I wonder how independent carriers that use the independent agency brand can help the agents raise that flag up that says we offer more choices and we offer more consultation, right? And because of that, when you get to the point of the claim, you will not be surprised. You won't have a bad experience. You'll have the experience you expected because you got consulted through the process.
It's interesting, I think.
Instead of like name your own price, and go, oh shoot.
And what's that coming through? It's coming through just the millions and millions of dollars poured into advertising. Right. And so I think there's probably where he's kind of striking that balance of investing dollars into helping agents provide more digital resources, one of the things that is interesting is the amount where people are getting their leads now. A lot of it is coming through social media elements. And so, I'm not versed enough in it to tell you, boy, this is how it's moving away from print or television advertisement. But you hear more and more momentum around the social media aspects of advertising, word of mouth, referrals. I think that as that continues to grow and you continue to help agents invest there, that's where the buyers are going now, right? No, people will call. There's been plenty of studies that say how many times and how many places people look before they decide to switch their insurance. Right. And so if you're going to an independent agent, they're doing that for you. And boy, here's somebody down the street. Here's somebody else I knew, and a third person, a fourth person, all providing positive reviews of this one independent agent. And because the independent agents invested in their digital footprint, they're out getting that. And that it doesn't matter that it's not advertised. Because the social media world is helping consumers understand that independent insurance agency at that location's offering options and consultation. And it's changing fast. I think, listen, if 2 years will come, I'll commit next year, whenever, we'll come back and we'll have this similar conversation and talk about how it's changed.
Absolutely.
It's changing fast. And I think, there was a stat, actually, this came from Tyler on a interview I heard him do, but he had cited how e-commerce, and so for 10 years, there was a 10-point increase over the course of 10 years in e-commerce leading up to the pandemic. And just to think about that through the evolution of PayPal and evolution of Amazon and all these other e-commerces. You move into the 8 weeks of the pandemic,
Right.
it increased the same amount as it did the decade before.
Wow.
And so think about that momentum
Yeah.
that's going in there. It's changed in the last year and a half.
Yeah.
Buying habits have changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I do think the more that people are going to look to the digital footprint in
Yeah.
order to buy, and that's where that's where the investment needs to be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think I in my own head I've been exploring this idea of how does the general public look at, if insurance is distributed 3 different ways, do they look at one of those 3 different ways with more joy in their mind, or they go, yeah, I trust that distribution model more than that distribution model versus that distribution model? And which ones do they trust more? Which ones do they understand better? They clearly understand the direct model because It's been that way forever. And I just wonder if they look at like hokey commercials of some agent sitting at their desk with some random, camera on them going, hey, I sell insurance. Come on down and get me some insurance from me. And then they run a $5 Facebook ad and they go, oh my goodness, that independent insurance agent is definitely not as professional as that, fill in the captive carrier professional commercial. And so I just wonder if the public has an opinion about the IA channel or the direct channel or the captive channel, and if it's a good one or a bad one.
Word of mouth is a great way to get it. And so I think as we continue to gain momentum, and Big I's done a lot of good things as well. They've got some great commercials. I know you've seen them.
Yeah.
But your average consumer is not always going to see that.
Yeah.
But again, word of mouth is a great way
to
expand.
It absolutely.
And I think that's where we're going to see an awful lot of momentum in digital word of mouth.
Or Google reviews. Yep. Digital word of mouth, Google reviews. All right, cool. Let's wrap this thing up. So we got 5 pillars. We're going to go through some of these pillars, not even all of the pillars. So at Premier, we talk about the 5 pillars. One is marketing, one is sales. So how you fill your pipeline, sales, enough said there. Retention, how retention ratios are good or bad. Carrier relations and operations, agency operations. So I'm just going to highlight 2 of these 5 pillars, given the amount of time that we're going on. So what do you think some agencies do and don't understand about the value of carrier partnerships?
You have to coexist. Mm-hmm. And I think there are instances where we had talked about the sales piece. Mm-hmm. My job is to sell. It's your job. If you don't price it right, not my problem.
Sure,
that's a fast track for
disaster.
A carrier on appointment.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we're committed together to try to make sure we have a mutually profitable relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that mindset needs to come in. It needs to be that partnership. We need to lean on each other. Mm-hmm. There's going to be disagreements, and how many times you use I will agree to disagree, move on to the next one.
Yeah, right.
But the healthy ones kind of have that reciprocation.
Yeah, I agree. What % of the distribution channel, IA distribution channel, do you think has made the big boy business decision to partner with specific carriers versus I just sell what I sell and it just ebbs and flows the way it ebbs and flows, and sorry, that's the way it is?
I think it's going to vary by carrier, by geography. I'll tell you, this part of the country, it's pretty good. Yeah. It's pretty high.
Yeah.
We feel pretty darn good about
your partners,
about our partnership and our agency plan that we have on this part of the country. And so I'd mentioned the term engagement or the metric engagement. We track it on a monthly basis, and it's pretty good. Yeah. And if it dips, we go investigate why and work to correct it. But in a percentage basis, I would say we have 85 to 90% of our agents quoting us on a monthly basis. Yeah. And if they're in that 10% for too many months in a row, then we start having conversations. Yeah. Well, is there a need for this relationship? Yeah. But we get really good reception from our agents.
Yeah. Yeah, I think outside of that, like just outside of engagement, I would think like from a partnership perspective, like think about like a roof tactic, right? You make a decision to go with some specific roof tactic. Which of your partners are going, we support you. You make a decision. We want to support your decision, and we want to do that versus, if you do that, Safeco,
Great.
that's it. I'm upset, right?
That's
Versus,
a really good point.
I would think a partner would go, we want to support profitability, and as a partner, we want to support your decision.
Yeah, it's very well put, and as you say that, you think through those instances, and really the how good of partners you have when you get that, like how good that feels.
Yeah,
you walk away and say, boy, we've got it right.
Yeah,
we have the right people to do business.
Yeah,
and so I agree with you.
And I'd say that's outside of engagement. I mean
that's
not a spreadsheet, right? The spreadsheet might say we're 90% engaged.
Yeah, that's not
partnership. Is we're changing. We have a new roof tactic, and it's like, okay, we love you, we want to support you. How can we do that?
Yep.
Versus you got somebody engaged, but they're going fine, but I'm upset. When you're
right.
All right.
And you can expect anything, whether it's our Right Track product or any of that.
Sure, absolutely.
We want
partners will help you
do
go down this road. Yeah. Absolutely, agree 100%. Last question. Sure. What words of wisdom would you give somebody new to the insurance industry? New little young college kid, just graduated, getting into the insurance industry on accident, going, shoot, how did I get into this?
First word I would say is congratulations.
I love it.
You made a decision that you may not have thought was the best one of your life, but boy, it's going to rank up there.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I would say buckle up. It's changing. It's an evolving industry.
Yeah.
And we opened up with this discussion about just the amount of opportunity that exists. I spent a number of years recruiting back when I first starting out with the company on college campuses, and that was it. It's like, do you have any idea the amount of direction you could go once you walk into the doors of a carrier, or an agency,
or a large brokerage or whatever,
there's so many different ways you can do it, and so buckle up, learn, expand, try to find a different way to just keep getting more knowledge, evolving, right? If you come in and throughout this, it's kind of our whole conversation's been laced with how this industry's evolving. Yeah. If you come in and say this is the way it's going to be, and I've got the next 35 years to work, boy, you're in for a big surprise. Super big surprise. So grab a hold, read, educate yourself. Yeah. Expand your views, your horizons, but keep after it, because it is such a great industry. You made the right choice. Yeah. Now take the right actions. Yeah. I love it. Anything else you want to say on insurance? You indemnify me. This has been the Larry commercial. Yeah. This has been the Safeco commercial. This is great. So I appreciate anything else you're like, this has got to be said. No, listen, we have a saying that I'm sure you've heard many times. Yeah. We don't win and we don't succeed until an independent agent sells a Safeco policy, sells a Liberty Mutual policy. Put a policy with us. And so, so much of what we do and so much of what we talked about today is our support for the independent agent, and we want to continue to do it. Yeah. And we look forward to the evolving partnerships and the evolving industry and going at this together. Yeah. Because it is an exciting time, and I'm excited about the next time I'm sitting here. Yeah. And we're talking about how much it's changed in the year. Yeah. 2 years from now, it'll definitely be like, whoa, we were talking about weird stuff, because that didn't happen at all. Well, we love Safeco. I just want to say that publicly. At Premier Group Insurance, we're huge Safeco fans. I've always been a Safeco fan. I've been in insurance for 18, 19 years. We love it. Rex Sickling worked there and for most of his career, and he loves it. And we're just through and through and through Safeco fans. So we consider ourselves very close partners with you guys. We love you guys, and everything you guys do. We just go, wow, this is great. And as do we. And if I'm doing my job effectively, we'll walk away and you'll be saying the same thing about Liberty Mutual. That's right. That's well. And I when I say Safeco, I mean Liberty Mutual and everything that it's becoming. So we absolutely love the organization. So there you go. Thank you very much. Have a good one. We'll see you guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.
The lawyer told us we had to record this, so here we go. Premier Group Insurance is providing this podcast for informational use only. This podcast should not be relied on as legal or medical advice. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Premier Group Insurance. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Views and opinions expressed by Premier Group Insurance employees are those of the employees and do not necessarily reflect the view of Premier Group Insurance. Copyright 2021, Premier Group Insurance, Inc., all rights reserved. Peace.